Right. So I think we are live on YouTube now. Good evening, everyone. This is Anish, and I'm here on behalf of the National Law Training Institute. Today, we have a very special person among us, Divas Upadhyay, who got a very impressive All India rank of 6 in AILET 24 and All India rank of 38 in CLAT 2024. So I think he's in a bit of dilemma right now whether to go for NLUD or NLS. But I think by the end of this session or by the end of this week, he'll have his final decision in hand. So, welcome, Divas. We also have Aditya among us, who was one of our mentors at NLTI for the past 2 years, for the past year, basically. And he was the one mentoring Divas in our mentorship course at NLTI. So, we'll get to know a lot about their personal interactions happening within NLTI and how the course was like here. So, Divas, firstly, how do you feel about the entire thing? First, getting rank 38 in CLAD, and then getting an even better rank of 6 in AILET. How was the entire feeling? How are your parents' reaction to it? So, just
Yeah,
tell us everything about it.
so my parents have been happy ever since the answer key came, but they have been happy even before. They're very supporting, so they never pressurized me
Hmm.
कि ये होना चाहिए, वो होना चाहिए. But yeah, after seeing the CLAT rank, they were especially really happy. I was a bit disappointed, not because of my rank, but because of my peers. I was having seen them prepare for so many hours, so many days, even years,
Hmm.
and then seeing that dip in those ranks, which I personally feel they did not deserve because of the controversies that are associated with CLAT 2024. So I was a bit disappointed
Yeah.
then, and I was also, but yeah, overall I was happy when the next day came and
Hmm.
so on. But when A-Let results came out, I was even more happy. Even though my initial target was NLS, I was more happy because I was seeing
Hmm.
my peers get good ranks, which I felt like they have been deserving of since day one. And yeah, overall, I think students who genuinely prepared had a better time with A-Let than with CLAT. So yeah, both weeks were happy,
Yeah.
but after A-Let, I'm more happy now.
So just to reply to that, I think there was no differentiating factor in CLAD this time. So even it didn't
Yeah,
really matter whether you prepared for like let's say 2 months with a good educational background, a good grasp over English, or whether you were preparing for 2 years consecutively. But I think still, even though ALET paper was also very easy this time, there was a slight differentiating factor that
yeah.
resulted in people who were actually preparing for some time now, clinching those top ranks. Yeah. So, how did you
Precisely.
celebrate it? Like, did you go out with your family or how your friends? What are your next plans?
Yeah, so I haven't gone out thus far. I've just been occupied with school and stuff. My celebration is usually just ordering something I like. So I ordered food at 12 a.m., ate it, and slept.
Hmm.
That encompasses my celebration. But yeah, I've been planning to do something, go out with friends maybe in a week or so when I've done with some important events at school.
Right. Aditya, do you want to talk to Devas about anything from mentee to a junior? Probably. How do you feel?
So I think I was extremely happy about like I got his CLAT rank. He messaged me that he's gotten a good rank in CLAT, which is 38. So that day also, like I just wrote to him that fine, I like just like any other mentor, right? Like your
Hmm.
instinctive response is fine, congratulations, but you still have another exam coming up. And so I wrote to him that and I told him that okay, but my expectation from you is a single digit rank in AILET as
Yeah,
well.
Elliot.
And so when he tells me yesterday that, oh, I have gotten a single digit rank, before I congratulate him, I reply to that same message saying, thank you.
Hmm.
So, yeah, so I think that's a interesting anecdote about Divas. I'll tell you something about Divas. Uh, and I think the reason and something that any mentee, anybody who's preparing for a competitive exam should take away. I mentored him for I think almost 6 7 months. Right, like one thing that has been constant from day one has been the fact that he has that element of tehrav or element of just a little conviction in himself, right? So I never saw him like flustered. I never saw him uh, beating around the bush for like no reason. On point questions, responses, and just continue supposed to do. And I think that conviction in yourself and that idea of just doing what you're supposed to do with calmness is something that has led to this magnificent achievement, right? We'll talk more about that. We'll talk more to Divas about like what was his preparation strategy and how were we able to like facilitate a little bit. Obviously, like all credits to him. So yeah, I was extremely happy yesterday.
Aditya, I think your network is a bit shaky. You might want to
And
change
I
it.
think we also had a before the AILET result came. The day. 1 second.
It's okay. I'll talk to Divas till that time. So Divas, when you opened the CLAT question booklet, what was your first reaction to it? Did you go through the entire paper to see how the GK section is or how the other sections are, or you just started attempting straight away?
Yeah, so it's actually because of Aditya Bhaiya. He in one of his sessions he recommended that always give yourself 5 minutes to just go through the paper. And usually, it seems to be something that you should obviously do at a surface level. But when you're giving CLAT, if you haven't heard this from someone else, someone hasn't bounced it on you, you'll always just start with the paper because oh, low time limit, I have to rush. But what he said, after, ever since that day, I've been giving 5 minutes just to see the paper, and it has helped a lot. And you need to be in a relaxed state of mind. You're not That is not losing time, that is preparing to do better in that particular paper. So I've always done this. And when I started with CLAT, I realized there were only so I have a habit of counting passages to determine how much
Hmm.
time I will give to each
Yeah.
section. And I realized that as compared to the mocks I've given, the passages are extremely low. 4 5 4 they were extremely low. So I was okay,
Yeah.
maybe maths and GK so GK will be the determining factor. Then I started with legal because it was the bulky section I'm usually comfortable with. And as soon as I came to questions, I realized this is somewhat ridiculously easy paper. And
Hmm.
then I thought that I need to change my approach. This is not a paper about scoring as much as I can. This is a paper about losing as less marks as possible. So then I was more willing to
Yeah.
give time to questions. I had doubts, and I was more. And yeah, when I came to GK, it was in the second passage where there was a speech that I realized this GK was more RC based. As soon as I saw a speech, I was like, wait, do they have GK questions in the passage? I flipped back, realized I had already gotten one question wrong, which was in the passage, because I did not realize that this was
Hmm.
RC. But then I said, okay, never mind. And then I continued to read all the GK passages so as to not miss a single thing. And based on that, I attempted my questions. Yeah.
Right. So what was your attempt strategy? Like a sequence. You
Huh.
started with legal and
Yeah,
yeah.
my attempt strategy has always been attempt all the questions, not just because of the net profit that okay, out of five you only need to
Hmm.
get one wrong and one right and it will balance it out, but also because it helps with your time management and your the stress you are in while giving the paper. See, if I go in with the mindset that even if I know nothing, I'll just mark an option, I don't have to think much about it. But if I go with the mindset, maybe there will be some question. This works for me personally, may not work for everyone else.
Hmm.
Just wanted to clarify that. But if I go with the mindset, maybe I'll leave some question that I am very confused in. Then during the paper, I will think about whether I should leave this question or not, whether it passes that particular criteria of me letting it go. And that will cause more issues. So my strategy has always been to just attempt everything. It doesn't matter. And so I started with legal. I usually start with the bulky section because during the beginning, you are not in much stress. And legal is something that requires you
Hmm.
to think a lot as well. And it's a very bulky section. So I started with legal. I left maths for the end. I don't usually do that. Sometimes I solve a set or two. But I realized the reading was extremely less. I could get it done in less time. So doing maths at the end would be very stress free. So legal. Then I came to GK. Then I came to RC. So in RC, I realized because I did not want to lose marks, I realized I've been wasting a lot of time. So I started to speed up a little because RC answers were very obvious. So I started to speed up a little there. Then I got to logical, and finally I had around 25 minutes for maths. So, but while solving the first set of maths, I took a lot of time, and that got me in a lot of stress because I didn't know whether the second set would be just as difficult or would take me just as much time. And I started to rush, because of which I got one maths question wrong. But the second set turned out to be easy, and I was done 5 minutes before the time limit ended. So that was my one regret, rushing that set of maths, and maybe I
Hmm.
could have gotten that one question right. But yeah, overall, this was the pattern: legal, GK, RC, CR, and then maths.
Right. So, Aditya, do you have any question at this moment?
Yeah, like so I think because you calculated your score and you were like, I think we had a chat in the Super 30 batch also of NLTI that you were scoring before the key changed and everything. You were scoring above 100, right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure like that would have given you at least some cushion when you entered AILET, right? So
Yeah.
when you entered AILET, what was your plan like? That do you want to go all guns blazing, or would you still be a little conservative in your approach? What was the mindset? Just talk to us
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, so I was at 103.75 before the during the provisional answer key, and I thought that was a pretty safe score. After the final key came out, most of the people who were above 100 fell back, and I fell back too. I lost as many marks as possible, minus 3.25, but I was still at 100.5. So I thought, okay, if I'm still above 100, this means it's a safe score. And I got, yeah, I was a little conservative with AILET because I was honestly exhausted by this point. I not just because I was done with CLAT, but because how the paper had been. And yeah, if you
Mhm.
prepare for so long and the paper comes out to be this way as an aspirant, you do feel betrayed, and uh, that led me to my conservative approach. But yeah, I still ensured that I would like at least solve the previous year question paper before the previous year question papers during the days exactly before AILET. So that would help me get in the mindset regardless of how my approach was and during the week.
Mhm.
So yeah, even if I went with a lot of confidence. I went with the knowledge in my mind that I can make it. I have a good backup regardless of what happens, and I just
Mhm.
have to perform. I just have to perform well in it. I'll see what
Yeah.
happens, and yeah, so that score of CLAT really helped with my AILET mindset as well.
Okay, so I would actually like take it one step further and talk about a little more, right? So we had this conversation in our sessions as well. We have been having that, right? Ki AILET is that one exam where the best way to prepare is to not prepare like for a strategy, right? Like be as, I don't know, probably think on the feet, improvise. And I think I wrote a message also a day before AILET is that if you have to do well in AILET is just by adapting.
Yeah.
So the paper they gave you was similar to the kind of paper I wrote, which is in June 22, where English and logical were separated, and not like the paper people wrote last December. How did you adapt to that? How did you work? What was the
Okay.
feeling like? That is it like a good thing that they've separated
Yeah.
everything, or is it like worse because you've gotten into habit of doing it because people were giving those sort of mocks? How did that work?
So I went with the idea that I don't care what the paper pattern would be like. I just have to give my best. Because even if 2023's pattern was ridiculous, difficult, the cutoffs were very low. So I just had that at the back of my mind. It's a competitive exam. I'll see what I can do. But also, I was expecting the 2022 pattern to return. And I've been talking to my friends about it. What I had in mind was that 2023's pattern relied on an element of surprise. It was not just about the difficulty, it was about that element of surprise, uh,
Yeah.
uh, how people would adapt to merging of those two sections. And I thought that AILET wouldn't do that again because it would not work in the same way as it had in the past, especially with the extended time limit. So there's a good chance that they might just return to their usual pattern of having those as separate sections and testing the general ability. So when I saw the paper, I was pretty happy. Okay, yeah, English is only passage based, and yeah, and I think I saw 2 or 3 GK questions while I was flipping the pages, and I knew them, so that made me more confident because it had been my weakest section in the past. I did well in AILET GK, but it had
Mhm.
been my weakest section in the past, so that made me more confident, and I just made a time strategy and started the paper. Like I gave
Right.
5 minutes, made a time strategy, and started the
Mhm.
English. Yeah.
Okay, so cool. We have settled with the strategies for CLAT and AILET. But this is what looks like when you're giving an interview, right? Like, okay,
Uh-huh.
scores, CLAT, AILET. But let's talk a little bit more about what goes on, like what goes in actually getting these sorts of ranks, right? Like, because I think the common thing between all three of us is the fact that we have been through that grind. Uh, so let's
Yeah.
talk about GK, right? Because you said that it has been one section that has constantly troubled you a little.
Huh.
Uh, how are you going about GK? Because I remember like a lot of our conversations, and not just with you, but with people in general in my group was that how do we streamline our GK preparation? Considering a lot of you like had schools, projects, all sorts of those things. So how did you work with GK and what was your strategy like?
Yeah, so I think
Also,
my
Divas, I'm
initial.
sorry to interrupt. Just adding on to that. So, after preparing so hard for GK, how disappointed you were after seeing the CLAT 2024 section?
Okay, so I would just like to share an anecdote. So my GK scores, I just, as I said, I'll just answer both questions in one go. So
Yeah,
as I
yeah.
said, it had been my weakest section in the past because I was always confused about what to follow, what to do, and I was very directionless, I would say. In that sense, that made the section very weak. But yeah, gradually I tried to stick to sources. I tried to revise more things like that, and then I also worked in groups, formed quizzes. I had a study partner, Jyoti Hegde, who's also all India rank 60 in AILET. Then later on, we also formed a group of 9 people called General Kabutars, and we would just sit in for 5 to 6 hours in a meeting, sharing GK with each other from various sources, just boring each other till 1 a.m. at night. And yeah, so that
Hmm.
what made me that added accountability to it, that added a variety of sources to it, and that just added. Uh, so when you hear things from your friends, it's easier to recall. It's easier to make guesses for things. For example, I remembered the elite question first female judge. I didn't exactly remember, but I remembered that one of my friends, Ishan, who is AIR 7 in elite, asked whether this first female judge was also the first Muslim judge. And during that question, I remembered him asking and I looked for an option with a Muslim name, and then and I got that question right because of it,
Hmm.
even though I forgot the answer.
Yeah.
So yeah, that those interactions helped. And coming to your question, what happened was I was at a stable score of 15 plus ever since I've started to make improvements. And suddenly during the last week, I started to get single digit scores in GK. After
Hmm.
getting that stability, I immediately dropped for some reason, getting simple questions wrong. And in my last 3 mocks, I had 3 single digit scores in GK. So I said, okay, no worries. There's not much I can do
Hmm.
right now. Aditya Bhaiya said, yeah, no. I also messaged Aditya Bhaiya about it, and he told me not to worry much. So I said, okay, I know my strength is reading, and whatever happens, I'll manage it here, and I'll just use this as bonus. Whatever, it's even if I don't know, it's not as if most aspirants would be able to do it anyways. So
Hmm.
I tried to focus on making my mindset better because at that point of time there's not much you can do about it, even if yeah I had that previous stability and then there was a drop, so that hurts a bit more, but you just have to be firm and believe in yourself. And when I went there, I saw GK was pretty easy. I was frustrated, but then during the paper you have to control that frustration. You have to let that go. So I just took 1 minute where I did
Yeah.
nothing. I just sat for a minute. I said, okay, I'll get back to it. But yeah, my even if that preparation didn't work out well in CLAT and it was more so reading
Okay.
based. Yeah,
Great.
yeah. Uh, Sorry.
Aditya, we lost you, but now you're back, I think.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I'm
So
back.
even if it didn't work out in CLAT, it worked out in AILET. I had a 25 out of 30 in AILET GK, even though it was easy. But yeah,
Damn.
it was
Hmm.
because I studied, even if it seemed surface level. So that made me more confident in my future aspirations as well. So I think it's more important to be firm in your mindset as well when
Yeah.
such things happen, especially during the paper, because it's pretty easy to get frustrated. It's pretty easy to get sad, angered, whatever. You just have to let that aside for those particular 2 hours and go on with your paper. And that's what I did during that. And at the end, it worked out in Halo.
Yeah. Divas, I have one question for you. So, given that the GK was very easy in CLAT this time and even in AILET, do you think this might have the effect of demotivating future aspirants from putting that much effort in GK that you guys did? Because now they'll have this thing in the back of their minds that oh GK तो easy ही आएगी हमेशा,
हाँ.
क्यों इस पर इतनी मेहनत करनी है? Consortium कुछ ना कुछ तो fuck up कर ही देता है. Why do I even study this much GK if they have to give answers in the passage itself? So, what advice would you give to these aspirants who might be thinking in this way and they might watch your interview later when they're preparing for CLAT?
Yeah, so my advice is don't use 2024's paper as a, as a litmus test for what you are going to prepare for in the future,
Benchmark.
especially
Yeah.
benchmark, especially with GK, especially when it comes to GK. Don't do that. What I would suggest is not have any section as your sole focus. Don't have any section that you are relying on too heavily. कि अगर इसमें marks नहीं आए तो I won't be able to score that much. Don't do that. Try to divide your focus on all sections almost equally. I think after a certain point of time, reading sections and QT, you're going to be good at anyways. Your improvements are going to be
Yeah.
marginal after a certain point of time. So you can just utilize that time for GK anyways. Okay, maybe it didn't doesn't turn out to be as good for CLAT. It can help you with AILET. It can help you with some other exams, or even if you take studying GK as just an exercise for your reading, uh, it's a profit overall. So don't give up just on the basis of one paper. You don't know what the consortium might do next year. There are definitely going to be controversies, so they might have to change how they approach the GK section this year. So yeah, don't use that paper as a benchmark and try to divide your focus on all sections equally. Maybe don't give up on GK, but what you can do is not have something like, okay, GK mein itna to main score karunga hi. Yeah. So just don't do these things. Try to focus on try to focus on your preparation as is.
Right. Can I interrupt here? I
Yeah.
think again connecting back to like, because people will follow this, right? People will listen to your advice. I think one thing that we always had this sorted was the fact that your 4 sections combined are probably those 4 sections that will probably take you to the top 5 colleges. But GK is that one section that will take you to top 50, right? Like, and that's a little, I mean, that's a little surprise. There's an element of luck and all of that. That being said, if you had to give like 3 pointers for GK for people who would watch this, just 3 pointers, any of what you think, what would those be for GK? Then we
Okay,
can talk about something else.
Okay, sure. 3 pointers, I would say, have a good balance between newspapers and compendiums. Don't focus too excessively on compendiums. Don't focus too excessively on newspapers. Try to strike that balance. I think while what I struggled with initially was because I put too much emphasis on newspapers, and that caused issues with revision and things like that. Number one. Number two would be to interact with your peers. Maybe it's not necessary for you to conduct meetings and then study GK with them, but you can interact in the sense that get to know about what sources they are referring to, whether they are coming across certain topics regularly in the mocks that they give that you don't, things like that. And third pointer would be with your expectations, even with not just with the actual paper, but even with mocks. Because expecting to score really high in GK and mocks as well can cause demotivation when you don't. So don't expect much. Just see, okay, I was unfamiliar with this topic. Was anyone else familiar with this topic? If they were, what could be the reason? And then just try to get back on track with that in mind.
Right. So they must forget for a while that you are sitting in an interview with NLTI. So if you were to recommend NLTI to a junior of yours, would you do it? And how was the entire mentorship thing, with the mentorship sessions provided by Aditya and the entire environment at NLTI for you?
Yeah, I would certainly recommend NLTI to any junior because the mentorship was excellent, I would say, because it's not just about the suggestions they can give, the advice they can give, but it's also a feeling of reassurance that someone who has been there, someone who has conquered this exam is providing advice to me, and he's saying कि तुम भी कर सकते हो. So that there's a sense of reassurance that separates NLTI from regular institutes, right? When teachers give you advice, you may be prone to dismissing it, but here that's not the case. Secondly, it puts you in an environment of peers who are very serious with your preparation. So you get to interact with lots of people. It's not just with the mentors and people at NLTI, but it's also the students at NLTI that you get to interact with. I think that particular group of people is very excellent to be amongst and to find people to study with, find people to discuss things with. And yeah, the mocks as well. I would give them almost regularly because the passage quality is of a higher difficulty. And that helps you with other mocks. If I've given this, I can give this. If I've given NLTI, I can definitely attempt something else. So yeah,
Oh,
mostly those things.
right. I just had like a follow-up question on that. Uh, so interestingly, like we come across, so I keep getting, Anish obviously gets a lot of these messages that, oh, you don't have like subject matter experts on board with you.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
don't have teachers with you. So what are you doing so that we like pay you and join us, right? Like, why? How do you respond to that? Like, how are probably all of the mentors and the system of NLTI different from, say, a place where all you're getting is subject matter experts?
Okay, so I'll say this: you can get subject matter experts almost in any institute, right? And most people are probably already enrolled in another institute when they join an NLTI, so you already have that experience there. But here the mentorship is different because you have people like you, okay, someone who may not have been as good at GK or QT and still got in, or someone who had this focus. And yeah, so you'll see a variety of mentors with you who have been there, who have done that, and that's a very different experience from subject matter experts, right? It's not just about the concepts you build, because at the end of the day, CLAT is an aptitude based test. It's not a syllabus based test, right? So you don't
Yeah.
need knowledge to be poured into you. You need experience, you need practice, and I think that's a lot more relevant than those building blocks of CLAT, uh, the theory portions. And other than that, there are materials like mocks, sectionals, which I have attempted, which obviously there's some tangible thing. It's not just the experience, of course. Yeah, that's about it.
Great. Anish,
Yeah. So I just want everybody to listen to your views on this dilemma that you're facing right now. So there was what now? You are getting a rank of 38 in CLAD, a rank of 6 in AILET. So what is the way forward now? Are you moving to NLUD or coming to NLS to be our
Okay.
juniors?
Yeah, I talked to Aditya Bhaiya about it. I had a call with him, and he very neutrally explained to me the perks and cons of both the colleges. Right now, I'm more inclined to NLUD because I wish to pursue things on the government end, maybe judiciary,
Hmm.
maybe civil services, stuff, things like that. While I'm not very sure about corporate, I'm 90% sure I don't wish to pursue corporate law. And there's, of course, the rigorous academics at NLS, the trimester system, and everything that would limit my
Yeah.
flexibility for what I wish to do in the future. So I think for that, majorly for the flexibility aspect, I would prefer NLU Delhi. But yeah, I'll talk to you guys. I'll talk to someone in NLU Delhi and then reaffirm my decision,
Yeah.
because leaving a seat at Bangalore is a big decision. So I'll just take my time, consult a few people, including people at NLTI, and then make my decision about
Yeah.
it.
Right. So one last question. If you were to give only one advice to future CLAT 25 aspirants, what would it be? This advice you might want to encompass every section while you are giving this advice, because it should be just one piece of advice.
Okay, one piece of advice. That's a very difficult one. Uh, I would My advice would be what helped me the most is interaction with other CLAT aspirants, other serious CLAT aspirants. Always do that, because this is an exam where preparation and isolation is, I wouldn't say you can't prepare without it, but it's obviously easier to prepare with your peers, not just for the mental aspect of things, but about sources, about different approaches. Because at the end of the day, this is a paper about about your approach, not about just your knowledge. And when you hear
Yeah.
different perspectives, different approaches, different methods of not just studying but attempting the paper, it helps you a lot. There's a sense of reassurance, and there's also a sense of accountability and motivation to be better. So yeah, always be in
Right.
the community. You don't need to, follow everyone on all socials to do that. Just maybe
Hmm.
have a few people whom you regularly talk to. Maybe you can form a group, things like that. But yeah, just
Yeah.
interact with the community to know how you should proceed with your things.
Right. I wholeheartedly concur with what you said, Deva. So I'll tell you what happened during my CLAT prep. So I was enrolled in an offline coaching in Chandigarh, and just on with at a just at a score of 70, I was getting rank one in that coaching. But then I got selected in LE Super 30, and there I was getting 25th rank out of 30. So while I was just in that Chandigarh coaching, I was in a bubble that, oh, I'm the best one here. I might be the best one at the all India level. I'll get NLS for sure. But when I came to that Super 30 group of LE and I came out of my bubble, then it was then when I realized that no, uh, rank one at an offline coaching in Chandigarh is not going to prove anything. It's just nothing. It's just you are best among like 30 people enrolled there, but there's a whole outside world who are your competitors, and that is when I got a real edge in my CLAT preparation. When I got in that group, I started interacting with people. People, while I was scoring 70, they were already at 95. That was when I realized, no, I need to clutch up. So it's a great piece of advice, Divas. So thank you so much for it. Anybody who's watching this interview, please talk to your peers. Please find people who are serious for CLAT. Um, it will definitely help it will definitely help in GK and every other section, because ultimately you'll have that push, you'll have that motivation to get better, to improve yourself and match the scores of your peers. So that's it from this session today. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Divas, for joining in. Divas, we are very proud of you, and we really look forward to having you on the other side of NLTI now. As a mentor, of course. So looking forward to it, and please get in touch with us if you ever need anything, and we'll be in touch with you regarding the dilemma that you're facing right now.
Yeah, sure.
So thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Aditya. Thank you, Divas. Have a good day.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhaiya.